Hey guys, if you're looking for a way to support us, we're on Patreon, patreon.com/Pantelis. Get yourself some exclusive content. You get yourself podcasts early. It's a fun time. Meet a whole new community that you could then connect with on Discord. Join that stuff. Like, subscribe, share, and don't forget, leave a star rating. If you're listening to this on audio, Spotify, Apple Music, just leave a star rating. It goes a long way. Thank you guys.
I'll take you for a ride on the devil's ship. I'll take you for a ride where you sink or swim. Now come with me and let this story begin.
Viva, you have returned.
I'm back. This is the descent into madness, global madness.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you weren't violently murdered at one of those protests, because I heard rumors. Someone from the government, the federal government, came out last week and said that there was fears of rape. They were scared the prime minister would get raped in a bouncy castle.
That soundbite, which when it went viral, it was, I forget, I didn't even know that she was a Liberal member of Parliament saying, why would you have, if it was so dangerous, we walked back and forth in front of this convoy all day. It was so dangerous. Why'd you let us do that? Yeah. And then I thought at first that she was a conservative trying to show how absurd the claims of danger was. Like, we walked, a young woman walked back and forth in front of the convoy every day to go to work. Yeah. I thought she was saying it was so not dangerous. How did you declare the Emergencies Act? Then this guy, Mendocino, says, well, we got word from our officers that it was so dangerous we had to declare the emergencies. There were convoy members threatening people, plural, of rape. And I tweeted, I was like, you show me the criminal complaints where there's evidence for that. Otherwise, you just lied to everybody. But then, as part of that whole theater, she's like, how could you have let us go through this then? If it was so dangerous, that's reckless of you to have let us put ourselves in danger.
That is true. If it was serious, that's super reckless.
It is. The reality is, it was such an emergency that this member of Parliament walked to and from office and didn't feel the slightest bit of any form of intimidation. But such an emergency, they had to declare the Emergencies Act for the first time in the nation's history.
When they you know more about this than I do. When they pulled it 2 days later, didn't that make everyone who voted for it look like an asshole?
That was my take. It was not just that it made everyone who voted for it look like a total hypocrite and a moron. Like, just, they were 2 days earlier saying, this is a national emergency for which the provinces lack the resources to address with existing laws. It's such an emergency, we need to ratify this. And then before the Senate could ratify or reject, Trudeau's like, it's okay, we have the means now to do it.
I'll do you one better. Guys like Joe Lightbound, who had spoken out against the government and even said, I don't see why the Emergency Measures Act needs to be put in place. I don't see a reason for it. Then votes yes, because I guess he got pressured. Party line, you have to do what the party says.
He got whipped.
And then 2 days later, they just remove it. It's not really a danger. So they made you look like a tool. The NDP did the same thing. Jagmeet Singh embarrassed that whole party.
He's even worse. But get to Joel Lightbound. Yeah. No one should ever forget he's a hypocrite with no principles.
I'm never forgetting.
He gave a passionate speech about how Justin Trudeau was destroying the fabric of Canadian society, dividing society. Go out and address this protest. And then a week later, votes to ratify the Emergencies Act declaration.
That he declared unjustified.
Yeah. And why? Because he basically, Trudeau, the political snake that he is, turned it into a confidence vote where he said to his own party, vote against this. You're voting against your vote. It's a vote of no confidence for me. And we're going to be basically trigger another election 6 months after the $600 million election in a pandemic. No principles, no nothing. But I think we knew that of the Liberals. The ultimate kick in the groin, volte-face, or maybe it wasn't a volte-face, just display of hypocrisy. The NDP, the New Democratic Party, which may as well call itself the New Dictatorial Party.
Yeah. They're like, we're for the people, unless this guy tells me to be against the people, then I'll be against the people.
Worse than that. He's like, we're for the people. We are a people's party, union rights, right to protest, all this stuff. Jagmeet Singh comes out in the debate and says, the government's response to this has been disastrous. Yeah. Terrible. Irresponsible. So let's go and give the government that's irresponsible and reckless. Let's
unlimited
give them
power.
Unlimited power. Morons. Morons, hypocrites, and above all else, that they're just power-hungry tyrants. And Jagmeet Singh, the only thing he's thinking, one day I'll be the leader, and I want this power as well.
Yeah, but he won't be. I think he ruined himself. I saw a lot of hardcore NDP supporters. They were like desecrating his office. People were speaking about online, like, what is this? This isn't what I voted for.
It's and I told people when I was running, like, you think it's a protest vote to vote NDP over Liberal, you're just voting for Liberal 2.0.
Yeah.
The only difference between the two is that NDP has not been in power to act on their corruptive instincts or corrupt instincts whereas Trudeau has been in power and has been able to do it. But Jagmeet Singh, equally as divisive, equally as mean-spirited, equally as hypocritical, equally as dishonest, has just never had the power.
What's your take on this whole Ukraine-Russia thing?
I've discovered it's as
It's very complicated.
it's very complicated, but it's as a passionate war, conflict, invasion, depending on which side you're on, as any of the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts.
Yeah, of course.
You take a position, the other side of one side, the other side's going to lambaste you, demonize you, go after you. Yeah. Take a position on the other side, you go middle ground, and you say, don't really have a position. You're Satan incarnate for not calling out evil on both sides, depending on which side wants you to call out the evil.
Yeah, if I say stop bombing the Ukrainians, they go, well, what about the Nazi battalion? I go, well, okay, bomb the Nazi battalion, but what about the rest of the Ukrainians? Well, then the Russians are evil. I'm of the opinion that we need to negotiate peace. But if you say that, then I see the powers that be go, whoa, we like the Ukrainians. It's not that much. We got to sell them some weapons. So let this keep going. That's the problem, is that they make money. The United States military-industrial complex is making money off this war continuing. So what we want as humans is, I want the Ukrainians to not be getting killed, right? The problem is the people that have the actual power to negotiate peace are only getting money if this continues. So we're in a weird place where what we want is peace, but what they want is perpetual war.
But and then people will say, why would a government want its own people to suffer?
It's not.
First of all, that is to say that, has the government never done things like that in the past? I mean, has the government never imposed punishment on its own people?
Also, they don't see it as their people. The Ukraine maybe, but yeah, the United States of America, the Canada, all these other countries that support the Yemenis kids getting killed, they don't care.
Well, here's two things about the dispute is that I've never seen social media weaponized to such an extent for there's propaganda and misinformation, so much of it. I've never seen anything like it before.
It is crazy.
Typically, you know, during every flare-up of an intifada in Israel-Palestine, you get the same type of misinformation propaganda. False images, recaptioned images.
Yeah.
The amount of it on both sides, pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian, it's through the roof. Newly created accounts, 1 month, 2 months old, sometimes the month old, posting images, inaccurate stuff like videos that are out of context.
Yeah.
There was one yesterday.
They did it to us. He was doing a whole research on it. We talked about it on another podcast. He's like, dude, it was just hours of nonsense. It was fake. I believed so much stuff that I found out a week later this was actually fake. This was...
It's one story after another. Yeah. And then there's the video of the body bag in the background moving, which is overlaid audio from another... it was called a lie-in. It was about an environmental thing. But because people are wearing masks in recent videos, you can overlay whatever audio you want. And then people are saying, look at this, they're faking deaths. You navigate social media. You got to double check. I've been saying, like, the most useful tool, screenshot an image, do a reverse image search, and just make sure that the image that you're retweeting
didn't exist 5 years ago.
But no, the problem is, we've created... or the media has created a diabolical enemy that cannot be negotiated with in Putin. And they've set up, unfortunately, it's like basically setting up a world where you cannot negotiate.
Yeah.
Because if you now negotiate with the person you've been saying is literally Hitler, you don't negotiate with Hitler. And so they've set up this situation where there is no negotiation from the powers, and it's just going to be endless escalation by people who stand to gain monetarily from the sale of weapons. I mean, the military-industrial complex will benefit from this.
They're already benefiting.
Governments will benefit from this. They're going to get enhanced power. Yep.
That's what I hate. That's why I'm getting mad. I look and no one discusses that. They all go, send weapons. We need the Ukraine to fight. It's like, I don't need another Ukrainian to die. Like, what's the point? Why are we sacrificing a whole country? How come we're not talking about this? Why are we making the decision to push them into war? Being like, we might let them in NATO. We might do just to see how far Putin takes it. Why are we sacrificing? How do we have control? Why do we have that right to let other people die like that just so that we can sell weapons to them? Why do we have that right?
Oh, they're gonna say it's an existential threat. It's our existential threat. You can't negotiate with Hitler. They're gonna make some inaccurate comparisons to World War II.
He is hard to negotiate with. I give you that. This guy doesn't give a fuck. But
here's the reality, though. You can try to win by force, but you're trying to win by force against a nuclear power who is now allied with China and India. And what are you doing? You basically put yourself in a position where you can't backtrack and say, well, let's just sit down and try to resolve this because you've already said he's Hitler.
Yeah.
You can't then say, let's sit down and talk with Hitler. It's absolute irresponsible government, in my humble opinion. There's a legitimate conflict. It's an invasion. I mean, people can 100%. It's 100% an invasion. And the question is, did it start yesterday? And is it going to resolve tomorrow? And is the way to deal with it let's cut Russia off from the world. Let's punish Russian civilians. Let's escalate the war by shipping in arms through Poland and then bringing them into the war. But, the people who are doing that are safe. They're in the government. They're in the military-industrial complex. They have no exposure to any of this. It'll increase government powers. It'll increase NATO powers. It'll make some money for a lot of people. And then in the meantime, innocent people die because the governments have set up a situation where you can't negotiate anymore, because if you do, you're negotiating with Hitler.
And the other thing I've noticed is all these companies trying to signal their virtue. We're stopping our platform being in Russia. Russians are no longer allowed to buy this, buy that. But there's a lot of Russians, many of them, that were protesting against the war. You're punishing regular people. It's not just to show, hey, look at how much I care about Ukrainians. But you're not. It's not going to change anything. Like Netflix said, they're no longer going to be. You can't stream their videos in Russia anymore, right? You think that's what's going to end the war? You think Putin's like, look, if there's no RuPaul drag race, I gotta end this invasion. It doesn't make any sense.
It makes sense from the virtue signaling sense that Netflix is saying, look, this is such a clear-cut case of evil versus good.
But it's not the military that's watching these Netflix shows. It's people that are at home that aren't fighting.
Forget that part. I mean, does Netflix still stream in China?
For sure.
And all of these companies, what they're basically saying is, we're willing to cut off Russia.
Flavor of the month, yeah.
Well, flavor of the month, but it's not economically painful enough for them because they won't cut off China because it's like probably the biggest market for a lot of them.
Yeah.
They'll cut off Russia because it's fashionable.
Also, there's VPNs. Russians are still going to access.
Well, my only bottom line to this is these companies doing this, basically saying Russia is so evil, we're not going to do business with them. Fine. If you're doing business with China, what you're basically saying is, I accept some genocide.
Yeah.
The Uyghurs. I accept that. Yeah. I'll do business with them.
You kill a Muslim. You're not going to kill a white Ukrainian.
That's it. It's like that's evil, but not quite as evil as what's going on in Ukraine. So we're going to cut off Russia, not China. And by the way, what's the outcome of cutting off Russia? Is they're going to? You think they don't have good engineers, good tech, good brains? In the space wars, they put up a good fight, a good competition. They'll find ways, and they'll ally themselves with China. They have a lot of resources. They have a lot of control. They'll set up a parallel economy. And if they think if the Westerners think this is going to be good for the dollar and for us,
we're going to eat it hard.
Oh no, and we are. I mean, $2. Can I swear? $2 an effing liter.
Yeah. I
mean, it's great. You got George Takei, who has the worst takes
on everything.
Yeah. He came out the other day and said, "This is a price we all have to pay to fight evil." I was like, yeah, dude, you're worth $14 million. It's a price we all have to pay, but some of us have to pay for more than others.
I want to negotiate peace. Why do I have to pay this price? I don't want people
George
dying.
Takei, the anti-open borders, except the fence around his house.
Yeah.
Spread the wealth.
Well, look, if he's open borders, the Ukrainian border is clearly open right now.
They are open borders except in Ukraine. They are anti-Second Amendment except in Ukraine. They're anti-crimes against humanity, except they're celebrating the fact that they're arming children in Ukraine to fight Russia. I mean, this is
just the second you see that they're arming children, that's when the UN has to actually do something, get in there and be like, guys, we have to negotiate. We can't risk the lives but they don't care because it's not their kids. They don't care because it's my kid, your kid, the Ukraine. That's why they don't give a shit. They don't see, they don't empathize. They don't see themselves in the people fighting. And that's what pisses me off. 'Cause I don't know how you get elected to that kind of position and you could sleep at night knowing that a phone call or if you a forced negotiation, concede something, could save some lives and you don't do it. How do they sleep at night?
Well, the conflict itself, Zelensky, from my understanding, was elected on that sort of platform of negotiating some form of resolution in the the Donbass region, and then didn't, refuse to, failed to, or said I cannot negotiate the settlement with Putin. So that issue aside, when you see people celebrating arming children as a symbol of defiance and resolve, it's a war crime. Yeah. I mean, people on the Twitterverse say kids are running around Rwanda with 12-year-olds running around Rwanda with guns. Nobody says anything.
That's not a good thing. We all say stuff. That's terrible.
We have family friends who...
I tried to adopt a couple of child soldiers,
Well,
but they said I can't get them with the guns in a package deal, so I said I don't need them.
I cannot attest to that, Pantelis, but no, we have friends who they volunteer, they go to war-torn countries to rehabilitate children soldiers. I mean, nobody tolerates it in any other country. So these false analogies, but when
I want you to know the hypocrisy. The island of Cyprus has been occupied since the 70s. The northern half of Cyprus has been occupied by Turkey. NATO doesn't give a shit. The European Union doesn't give a shit. All they care about is they'll make their money. They'll sacrifice anyone. All this is theater. But what sucks, why I get sad, is because the theater is causing people to die. There's Ukrainians dying. They're forced from their homes just because nobody wants to do the fucking right thing. It's all about the bottom line, and the bottom line seems to always be money.
Well, it comes down to government as a make-work project. If you actually resolve problems, less need for government. Exacerbate problems, blame the exacerbation on somebody else. You get to create your own work, justify your own existence, increase your own budget.
I say we do the same thing. We know that now the Russians are going to be lacking internet content. We make our own stuff. Welcome to Slavic friends.
No, but we've entered a world like historically. I don't think sanctions have ever done what they were supposed to do, which is coerce a regime into reconsidering its position.
Just makes them angry. Look at Iran.
Well, look at Iran. Look at Libya. I mean, these sanctions don't do anything. The oligarchs or the tyrants that are oppressing the people, ruining the country, they don't get affected by sanctions. What you're doing now is blanket punishing 140 million people, and if that's even if there is a change of regime, what's the next regime going to look like? Are they going to be more sympathetic to the West that just terrorized an entire nation, or are they going to be even more hardline?
Hold a grudge.
They're going to hold a grudge, a generational grudge, and this is how it just spirals out of control. But the people making the decisions, they've got security, they've got fences, they've got weapons, they've got money, they've got wealth, they've got everything. They're not going to suffer one day out of this.
I have ties. I like the Ukrainians. I like the Russians. I have ties with they're Orthodox. Like, we have a lot of similarities. I hate seeing this kind of shit. I hate seeing it anywhere. I just hate seeing it now, knowing that we could be forcing negotiations. And I see that they're not doing it. They go, no, we can't negotiate. We just have to isolate them.
Can you imagine?
What are you doing, man? You're doing that because it's not your kids.
Well, you're doing that because it makes you look good at home.
Yeah.
Let's kick out the ambassadors. When have you ever resolved an international dispute by kicking out the ambassadors for those countries? I mean, so good. You're stubborn children. You don't know how to negotiate.
If we were getting bombed right here, if we were getting bombed and we were dying, trust me, Trudeau would be trying to negotiate peace as quick as possible. But because it's not us...
No, it's nice.
Yeah, let's stretch it out.
We're doing everything we can to resolve this dispute by kicking out the ambassadors, by demonizing everyone from that country, by demonizing Russian natives. With this Russian Canadians who are here. You have Nikki Fried, I guess maybe it's Fried or Fried, who's running for the governorship of Florida. Apparently has no chance of winning, but basically saying they are dividing their own population.
Oh, they said that Russian Americans and Canadians are the problem?
No, but look, when they're talking about excluding Russian people from things and just demonizing Russians.
But these are the same people that were beating up Asians during the beginning of COVID here. It's the same type of mentality. Look, this is your fault. It's the same low IQ individual, just that now it's more politicized. That's what it is.
Well, I'm not sure about, not sure how to digest that, but...
Well, they were doing this. So when COVID was hitting, a lot of Asians were getting the shit kicked out of them. And the stuff they were yelling at them was, this is because of you. You destroyed the world. And these are just people like, what are you talking about? This is some Chinese guy that lives here. Like, how did he start COVID?
It is. Well, this is the biggest thing is like with I'm bringing it back just as an analogy because it's one that I can understand more.
Yeah.
Palestinian-Israeli thing. You see how it creates local divides. And then when you have politicians... I say interfering, taking positions on regional conflict, and then effectively pitting their own population against each other. I saw it happen during the first and second Intifada when I was in university, and you see it now. They're basically saying Russia. You see these tweets. Russians are evil.
Yeah. Ukrainians are Nazis.
If that's the rationale, there's a lot of people who are going to think all Americans are evil for the things that the American government has done abroad.
That's what I said.
But they don't want to...
Because they're blaming, because they're like, the Russians did this, so every Russian's a bad person because they took over. So then is every American bad because of the fucking war in Iraq that shouldn't have happened? It was done under false pretenses. The bombings that are happening in the Middle East? No, you can't blame most Americans don't want war.
It is... I saw a good tweet the other day. Said it's not hypocrisy, it's pecking order, or it's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy. I just call it hypocrisy because they're going to say, look, don't blame us. We're not responsible for Trump, or we're not responsible for Bush. Don't collectively blame all Americans. But all Russians are bad. We need to call out Russians. We need to force Russians to publicly stand against Putin, or they're just as guilty. I mean, this is the level of it's hypocrisy where they say where the rules for thee but not for me. But what I loathe is you have these local politicians nationalizing a foreign conflict and pitting. There's a lot of Russians in Canada, and there's a lot of Ukrainians in Canada.
I know a lot of them.
We get along peacefully without personalizing nationally international.
I'm going to fight them
conflict.
both now, just to keep it fair.
Well, I mean, and then you got the people in the middle. Like my grandmother, family side was from Russia, left in the pogroms of 1890s. My grandfather's side was from Ukraine, left in the 30s, but it was the country changed hands a few times between World War I and World War II.
A lot of Greeks in the Ukraine.
And we live locally without personalizing and without nationalizing foreign disputes. But these politicians, and I'll look at Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh in particular, they thrive off dividing and conquering. And they thrive off fomenting dispute so that they have dispute to resolve, so that they have issues to address.
And what they're doing. Putin want right now?
So it depends on who you ask. Some people are going to say global domination.
No, I mean, like to stop this invasion. Like, what did he? Because I heard him say some stuff, and then I was like, okay, they're going to negotiate this.
Well, the
neutrality of Ukraine.
So I do my live streams with Robert Barnes, and and I've interviewed a bunch of people, on the nature of the dispute, the history. By all accounts, if you're, they'll qualify you as being pro-Putin if you say this. People say what Putin wants is no NATO, no nukes, and no Nazis in the Ukraine.
I'm okay with that, but the no Nazis thing is hard. I'll tell you why. There's Nazis in Russia. There's Nazis in the Ukraine. There's fucking Nazis in Canada, believe it or not. I don't know how, unless they're overtly open. I don't like those vague requests because then it never ends, right? It's kind of like the war on drugs or the war on terror. Well, you can always find something else to terrify you.
That was one question I put to Robert during our live stream last night. Is that a pretext or is that an actual reason? The third one, the no nukes and the no NATO.
I'm all for that. No nukes.
Well, no nukes. It would be no nukes in Ukraine if Ukraine becomes part of NATO, because the argument is, believe it or don't, that Putin will see as an existential threat to Russia Ukraine joining NATO and basically having nukes in Ukraine in the same way back in the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah. It was an existential threat to have missiles in Cuba.
I get that. That I understand.
And then the Nazis. I mean, that's the extent.
I'm against the Nazis too. I don't want them to exist. It's just so vague. How do I know what the next guy's thinking? Like I could tell from his haircut, maybe.
From what this is where the limitations of my own knowledge and experience not being on the ground. There's actual battalions, actual entities which are officially known, whatever. But let's just say that's it. That's if you're on Putin's argument team, that's what they're going to say is what we want. Other side is going to say he wants to conquer the world. It's going to start with Ukraine, going to move to Poland, applying the Hitlerian analogy, mutatis mutandis.
Yeah.
And other people say that's if they got 140 million people in a landmass they can barely take care of. Global domination is maybe.
And also, as opposed to the Hitler times, we got nukes now. He knows that in the end, we're just going to all kill each other if that happens.
Well, and then people are going to say he doesn't care if that's how much of a madman he is. There's another argument
if
he
doesn't care, why is his girlfriend and kids in Switzerland to be safe right now? Well, I'm just saying, if he was ready to kill everyone.
If he doesn't care, why wouldn't he have done it already in pursuit of Ukraine? Setting that aside, the argument, if you're pro-Ukraine or anti-Putin, is that Putin is very resentful that Russia has basically become a second or third tier world power, and they want to regain global dominance. They want to be a superpower along with the U.S., along with, China. And
by the way, I'm not anti-Russian or anti-Ukraine. I'm pro-peace. I'd rather try to find a way to resolve this conflict without Ukrainians forced to leave their homes or kids getting killed. That's all I want.
It's war. It's atrocious, and there's no but. War is atrocious.
Because
the question is how do you resolve it?
I don't see myself with the people governing. The people that I empathize with, that I could see myself being, are everyday people working. So those people are never going to win, whether you're Russian or Ukrainian. That's why I don't like the idea of a war, because those are the people that are always going to die. It's always going to be me and you. The elites that make these decisions never aren't going to feel this. So I have zero empathy for them. That's why I don't want war. I just want negotiations. Let's go back to
an old poem I posted to Twitter. I forget what it was. Basically, the bottom line is war is arranged by men in suits in boardrooms, and it's fought by children, and it costs the innocent their lives.
Yeah.
War is atrocious. The question is, how do you resolve it? And the most obvious question is, how do you possibly resolve it by excommunicating? The idea is going to be make it so painful on Russian citizens that they're going to force change in power. Even if that works, who are they going to put in power? Someone who's going to be sympathetic to the people who just terrorize them into submission, or are they going to be more extreme like we've seen in other countries? If it doesn't work, and then all you end up doing is forcing an alliance between a nuclear power, the world's biggest economic power, China, another nuclear power, India, and then a bunch of other countries which say, we never liked the U.S. to begin with.
Yeah.
And then what happens to U.S. influence? What happens to the U.S. dollar? What happens to the United States and Canada, which are a little bit more dependent on certain resources that they can't necessarily provide for themselves, or that they're not due to government decisions? What happens then? Like it either works, and then be careful what you wish for, or it doesn't work, and then what have you done? But bottom line, the reality, and I've discovered it, and it's a little disconcerting. It's a highly impassioned dispute for obvious reasons, and
because there's a lot of history there.
There's a lot of history, and there's both sides are convinced the other side are evil, and once you have convinced yourself that an opposing side is fundamentally, incorrigibly evil, there is no negotiating with it, and anything goes. As we're seeing now with blue checkmark Twitter saying, yeah, there's this thing called the Geneva Convention, but when we break it, it could be justified this time because it's just that evil.
Yeah, and I don't like anytime I see people with pro-war propaganda, I don't care left, right, whatever.
Justifying posting pictures of POWs, justifying.
By the way, the POW situation is very strange. I keep seeing POWs that are giving interviews.
It's everything about this is
like a
strange.
hockey game.
Everything about this is strange because it's a war that's being fought on the ground and on social media.
Yeah.
I mean,
so there's like, look, yeah, so we may have lost that battle, but you see the net. So how are you giving interviews? What kind of POWs are you? This is a weird generation.
There's a lot of stuff that I recognize I don't understand. I'm just, I've taken this opportunity to familiarize myself with the history of this dispute. I'm satisfied that I have a basic enough understanding of the dispute, more so than 95% of the people who are tweeting one way or the other on Twitter. But all that to say, this is a conflict. It's a war. It's an invasion. It is being, I won't say exploited by politicians, but it's being weaponized by politicians for a number of reasons. Some of which are keep the world in absolute panic, exacerbate the problem. It's good for sales, ship military, ship weapons.
Well, I know that the agenda is different because I follow some like actual Ukrainians, some athletes that live that are Ukrainians in the Ukraine, and all their posts are the same. We need peace. This needs to stop. But in North America, all of the posts from people trying to support are like, send weapons, fight. And the actual Ukrainians are like, look, we want peace. We don't want our kids to die. And then people are here like, we got to fucking send weapons out there. We got to kill these Russians.
There's a good expression that, a lawyer will fight to your last dollar. I mean, this is what politicians are effectively doing. Yeah. They'll fight with your kids. They'll fight with your money from the comfort of their fortified offices in DC and Canada, and no skin off their back. And they get to look virtuous while doing it.
I'm not liking this, Beeves.
I'm not. The world is. It's sometimes difficult to remain optimistic, and it's the progression of our multiple podcasts now. It's following a tangent. I just hope it's a dip before the rise. But man, it's been a steady downhill since COVID. This now, in the interim, what happened in Canada, which conveniently now forgotten by the media because there's a bigger, more serious conflict going on. Yeah. And if you dare try to remind the world as to what happened in Canada last week, you're showing insensitivity to the conflict in Ukraine.
Oh, that's how it works. Okay.
No, like you try to say, hey, Trudeau, remember that time you desecrated our constitution, used a militarized police force to break up a peaceful protest, broke some bones.
I don't remember any of that.
No, how dare you talk about that?
Let me put on my makeup.
There's more serious problems right now, and you're insensitive for even wanting to come back to national issues.
Yeah.
But that's it.
How you live in this now with the family and it? How are kids living this? Are your kids aware of what's going on in the Ukraine? Are they? Do they get stuff from the media?
We have the discussion. I mean, some of them are not. Two of them are not old enough to appreciate it. But the thing is, these discussions make their way into school.
Yeah.
The discussions about vaccines and COVID and face masks and.
Are we done with that?
You'd think we are, but we're not. I mean, the mandates are being lifted because of the science as of the 14th. I think pretty much. All of them, pretty much everywhere.
The masks are going to follow a month later. They said the mandatory masks.
It makes sense.
We got to see.
We got to see how things go.
I look, there's a number. They didn't even say see. They said these are just the dates we chose, which is hilarious to me. Like right now, as of the 14th, so in a couple of days, or I think it's the day that this podcast might come out. The QR code is being. You don't need one. But it's just an arbitrary date. It could have been today.
I was on spring break with the kids at a ski hill in Quebec. And they were still asking for the vaccine passport. I was like, dude, in a week from now, you're not. I'm not showing it to you. Go screw yourself. Yeah. In a week, it will not be scientific anymore. Can we bend the rules? I didn't actually ask them this question because I didn't even want to beg to do something. I don't want to beg to be part of a club that doesn't want to have me. But yeah, no.
Poseidon had to show his pass to get in the hospital to visit his dying grandmother, and he was like, he's showing it, and he goes. Look, do you realize how this is a hospital? Like how dumb it is. Like, well, you need to get in the hospital. He goes, what if I break my arm? I can't get in here if I don't have to. And also, it's being lifted. And then he told him, he goes, I'm not enforcing it. The government is. And Poseidon actually had a moment. He's like, no. You are enforcing it. They're telling you to, but they're not here enforcing it. You're the one enforcing it.
Just following orders, like those police that were busting up protesters in Ottawa. Just following orders. Yeah. And look, I'm sympathetic to them because they'll lose their jobs. Yeah. They'll get fired. But. It's funny. By following orders, you get paid time and a half in emergency pay or whatever it was.
For the cops you're talking about?
Yeah, the cops. I mean, there was a benefit. There was a financial perk to working that job. But no, I know someone who I should say I know them. I know the spouse of someone who broke their ankle, went to the hospital, needed surgery, and they said we're not doing it unless you're vaccinated. And then they say, well, I'm not vaccinated. You're going to do it. And they say, well, you're going to take a COVID test. Like, I'm not taking a COVID test either. You're going to do it regardless. And they ended up doing it. But they were like
crazy.
They were angry. The person said that the staff were angry. And by the way,
why would the staff be angry?
I don't want angry people operating on my body.
Why would
ever.
None of this makes any sense. This is so illogical.
It makes
especially
sense.
with the science that we know now, which is almost we got jabbed for nothing, but that's another story. Even if the science, what they were saying a few months ago, which was at the very minimum, your symptoms will be lower, but you can still catch and spread just like anyone else. Just at that logic, it doesn't make sense for you to give a shit as long as you're vaccinated.
But it does. For reasons of ego and spirituality.
That's what I'm saying.
These people put themselves at risk. Now they realize they took a chance for something with they
Do
took
you know
a
what
chance.
the equivalent of what they just did with what we know now? The equivalent would have been like, sorry, do you believe in Islam? He's like, nah, not really. Well, then we're not, but you better. It's become religious.
Well, so this is where they are going to impose the rules with mercy, with lack of mercy, in that they did it. Now they realize they did it, and they exposed themselves, however minuscule of a risk there might have been, they exposed themselves to some risk for something that ultimately probably provided minimal benefit. They made the sacrifice, they took the risk, and damn you if you think you're gonna get away without doing it. So imposing the rules right now in my mind has less to do with the science, but more to do with I made the sacrifice and you're a selfish prick who didn't, and therefore I'm going to follow the rules and punish you for not doing the same thing I did. That's what I think is spiritually going on.
There are actual human beings that in a couple of weeks, when the mask mandate is done, there are people who are going to be like, wait, a few more minutes, midnight. It's safe now. Like it's just a time. It's arbitrary.
There's going to be others who are going to be, I still don't feel safe to take off the mask. I mean,
I'm fine with that. You do you, sweetheart.
Hold on. I'm fine with that decision. But what they're basically saying now is, I trusted the government when they told me the masks were safe, and now I don't trust them when they tell me that I don't need them anymore. And it's like, I don't know if it's Stockholm Syndrome or how you qualify it.
A little bit of that double think happening.
It's basically like when I'm listening to CJAD, those awful, evil people. And I listen to it and I want to pull my hair out. And I say, I shouldn't be doing this, but I need to. They are now saying...
I keep getting tweeted by people who make fun of them. I guess because we talked about them here, who make fun of him. And I like how they include me.
Oh, well, no, I mean...
This is why radio's dying.
I know. I've been blocked now by half of the team. By Elias Makos, by the Gazette
we don't claim
contributor.
Him. Yeah.
I get it. No, what was I going to say? They were... they're saying basically... for Legault, it's so unscientific. He's telling us now to undo these measures that he just put into place. I mean, it's a dumb decision. We shouldn't be listening to it.
No, it actually is scientific. What you believed in was not scientific.
No, but it doesn't even matter. They're basically saying what the government is telling us now, we don't believe because it contradicts what the government told us before. One way or another.
But when I said that, I was an asshole.
Oh yeah, no, you're an asshole, selfish, and the vaccine passports aren't going to do anything. They're going to hurt business, yada yada. But the government said it was necessary, so these people say the government said it was necessary, and now they're taking it back. The government's idiots. Well, then you're listening to an idiot for what they said before, and not now because you think they're an idiot. Yeah. They've either been an idiot the entire time, or they've been right the entire time. And in which case, if you don't listen to them now because you think they're idiots now, you're listening to an idiot. And if you don't listen to them now, despite them being right all the time, you're the idiot. Actually, either way. So.
The real idiot, you can be wrong. I'm wrong all the time. The real idiot is the person that doesn't admit he's wrong and doesn't ask questions. I've been wrong a lot, but then I'll ask questions. Like, I educate myself. I know more today than I did yesterday. That's all you have to do. No one's going to be right 100%. The government in the beginning, they weren't purposely trying to scare us when the first 2 weeks. They didn't know what the hell's going on. They didn't know what was going on. No, look, you remember in the beginning when it first happened, nobody knew what the hell was happening.
My understanding is that the government might have known a lot more than they let on because this might have existed for several months before it hit, North America in 2020.
Because I remember the fear here when it first, when
it was palpable.
Yeah, when Trudeau's like, we might close the borders, and Legault's like, fuck that, I'm already closing the border. Like, he just panicked. And now it seems like it was excessive, but at the time, I'm like, you know what? In his shoes, I don't know what I would have done.
But here, closing the land borders, but allowing international flights, I mean, makes no sense.
I'm with you. It's completely ridiculous.
But following that rationale, I don't know that I think they knew more than they let on. They did necessarily because when Trudeau was donating our PPE to China in February, it's because he knows it's serious. And so when he knows it's serious, but then giving away our PPE, then saying it's so serious, we're shutting land borders, but allowing international travel from the affected areas.
That was dumb. I'm with you.
Yeah, and then by the way, at the time when they thought it might have been surface transmission, and when they had when you come in on international flights and you have to touch a little keypad to indicate symptoms. I don't know if you remember this.
No.
God, when you get to the airport, you had to indicate your symptoms, where you're going. Everyone was touching that stupid same little keypad. We know that surface transmission is probably not how it's spread. Yeah. So anyways, it's fractal wrongness. There's a concept called fractal wrongness. Every decision they made was wrong at the time. You couldn't be that wrong.
I remember the Lysol situation. Oh, here's another thing. Now that we know that it's not transmitted by touch and we know how it works, there's still places that try to force you to keep using hand sanitizer 4 or 5 times when you walk in. It's like, this isn't how this works. But they're like, well, we're following the rules. But this isn't going to help at all.
You imagine for what is it? It's a virus. Nonetheless, it's a coronavirus. The advice was lock yourself down. Don't get exercise. Don't get sunlight. Constant sterilization, which pretty much are the 4 worst things you can possibly do in general to combat a virus and at large for your immune system. But it's like every decision. No masks, then masks. Lock yourself down. Lock your kids away for 10 days if they've come in contact. They have been wrong, I would dare say, pretty much every step of the way. In a way that you flip a coin, you wouldn't be wrong that often.
There was a new article today. It was this morning. I think The Guardian wrote it, and they go, there's scientists trying to figure out why some people just can't catch COVID. They had wrote about this in the Post like a few months ago. They called it the COVID Invincibles. I'm one of those people. I just can't catch it, it seems. I'll tell you why. Because it is a peasant disease. That is why people like me don't catch it.
We had it. If I hadn't taken a test, I wouldn't know that okay, good, I got a sore throat and the sniffles. If I didn't know that I had it, if I hadn't tested, I wouldn't have known that I had it.
That's my other argument. I think a lot more, I don't know, I got lucky or whatever, but I think a lot more people than just the ones around me that I know didn't get it, didn't actually got it and didn't know. That's what I think.
Well, there's that. But then I think everybody also remembers, anecdotal, take it for what it's worth. What comes before January? December 2019, January 2020. Right before March 2020.
He got destroyed.
I had the worst flu I've ever had. I can go back and look at my videos because I was doing a video on CBC editing out Donald Trump from their Home Alone Christmas special. And I was so sick. First of all, I was Googling.
First of all, he was the hero in that whole movie.
No, but they said
if he wasn't there, where would Kevin McAllister have ended up? Perhaps the back lobby?
They said they edited him out for time constraints. Nothing political. Bullshit.
It's the dumbest thing.
You edit out the president of the United States for time constraints. Yeah, it was 3 seconds. Yeah. I was so sick then, as my kid got sick, everyone in the family, 103 fever, stabbing headaches, coughing, we all had it. But the other thing is now we've been conditioned to actually be terrified of what would otherwise be a bad flu, which is a very unpleasant thing for most people and a very serious thing for some people. But now we're like, oh, I had such a bad cough and I had such a fever. It's like, crap, that's happened every flu season. That used to be the flu, and now we've been conditioned to think we're going to die.
Well, we also panicked because I think they knew that it came. They lied about it for a year. Now we know that it came from that stupid lab. So I think that's
possibly.
It did. That's why that's why they panicked. I think they're like, ooh, what the fuck? Like this might be more serious.
Have you read The Real Anthony Fauci? Dude,
no, I hate him. I don't want to read anything about him. He was torturing dogs.
It goes. If you hated him now, you will think he's absolutely the most evil person on earth. And you take it for what it's worth. It's written by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., so people are going to go after the source and not the substance. But hold on, what did you just say that reminded me of that? Oh, knowing of the origins.
Yeah, so I thought it was established that it did come from there. Are we changing the story again?
No, they're just saying it's a very plausible theory now.
Allegedly.
No, what's the Lancet? People, Google the Lancet's Volt Fast. They said in March or April 2020, they published a letter standing in solidarity with their Chinese doctor brethren against these malicious, slanderous conspiracy theories that it originated in a lab. About a year later, The Lancet, the same journal, with ties to a bunch of corrupt entities, but set that aside.
Well, hold on, I want to say something before we continue. This is why I don't like when they play these political games. They make you think that you're a racist if you're against it. By the way, the lab thing is not a racist thing against China. That's against us, because that's our labs. If anything, it's that stupid Wuhan market thing that's racist. The lab is our fault.
I like your spin, and I like that angle to suggest it just came from someone having bat soup. I mean,
that's super racist.
Never even thought of that.
That's what they said in the beginning. They go, look at these guys, they're eating bats. That's not why. It's because we decided some stuff is too illegal to fund here, but we can fund it in another country.
Yeah, indirectly through NGOs. So that when Fauci gets up in front of Congress and says, the NIH does not fund gain-of-function research. And no, we don't.
We did fund the people that did it.
We funnel it through an NGO.
Yeah.
So the Lancet initially posted this article. It's terrible. Conspiracy theories. Deny it. And we sign a letter in solidarity with our Chinese fellow doctors.
The ones that disappeared when they spoke out about this initially?
No, I've heard. I'm so cynical about everything. I don't even know what to believe when it comes to those stories. But then all that I know is a year later, give or take, the Lancet publishes an article that says it's always been a perfectly plausible theory that it originated. It's like, you fuckers. I got the comparison side by side. That is called gaslighting.
Yep.
And apparently, by all accounts, Fauci knew damn early that this was a very plausible, if not actual, cause of the outbreak.
And then his reaction was, let's kill some beagles.
Shut it down. And then if you read what Fauci did in his dealing with the AIDS epidemic, I mean, it's like history doesn't repeat, but it tends to rhyme. What he did during the AIDS epidemic in terms of trying to promote a vaccine solution at all costs, blacklisting over-the-counter therapeutics, which were known to work by members of the community that were afflicted by AIDS. They all knew that they worked. They blacklisted these medications.
It's like what they did now.
They penalized doctors for prescribing them. That's what the whole Dallas Buyers Club was. I mean, it all makes sense in retrospect. Kierkegaard, life can only be lived forwards. Life can only be understood backwards, but must be lived forwards. The Dallas Buyers Club was because they illegalized what everyone recognized were functional therapeutic treatments to alleviate the symptoms of HIV/AIDS, depending on how you believe the correlation to exist, and they illegalized them. In the exact same way, they went after doctors who prescribed ivermectin, what's the other one? Hydroxychloroquine.
Monoclonal antibody.
Monoclonal antibody. They went after the medications to the point where they became black market as well. By you have to get the horse version. They went after doctors, pulling their licenses, attacking them, deplatforming them, in the exact same way they did back in the AIDS epidemic. Under Fauci, it's fascinating. If anybody hasn't read the book, read it with cynicism, skepticism. Maybe not everything in here is accurate.
I knew the only thing I heard about him during the AIDS epidemic is I heard that a lot of gay people in the States hated him because he was saying some weird stuff.
They hated him because he was illegalizing. He was depriving them of therapeutics that they knew worked, and all they wanted was for him to allow doctors to prescribe them, and he said no. And what ended up happening is that you had these buyers club where they were buying in black market.
So a lot of people died because of that.
A lot of people died because of that, and then a lot of people died apparently because what they were promoting as the cure for AIDS was effectively something like a chemotherapy type treatment that was effectively killing the people. It was exacerbating the symptoms. And people who had mild to no symptoms of HIV or AIDS ended up dying quite rapidly. Poseidon, if you remember the name of the medication that they prescribed, it started with a P.
What did they prescribe you for your HIV, Poseidon?
Back in the 80s. But what they were prescribing was killing people. And then they were fudging the
numbers, they did now.
Yeah, fudging the
test results.
The test result. What do they call them? When you do the trials.
Studies, the trials.
They were fudging the trials. They were eliminating the control groups. It's like mutatis mutandis, what we went through with COVID.
Do you, as a man of the law, and also someone who's on YouTube, you get a lot of comments, you see people's reactions. Do you have any theory as to what's going on with humanity and why we don't see this and accept that we keep getting lied to? Why do we keep letting ourselves fall for these same traps? I don't understand why people don't learn from their mistakes.
Well, Pantelis, okay, there's another expression. The one thing history teaches us is that we don't learn from history. I forget who said it. It might be Mark Twain. And it's funny. You're like, in my brain, I was driving over here, and I'm driving over listening to a YouTube video on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Okay. Or I'll call it the Ukraine war. I'm listening to a podcast on this. What the individual is talking about, I'm familiar with. Stuff that 95 to 90, I'll say 99% of the people out there are not familiar with. And then I look at two people waiting for a bus. They're talking to each other. They look young, smoking cigarettes. And, I'm looking and saying, I wonder what they're talking about. And if I had to guess, this is not to be judgmental whatsoever. It's reality. They're probably not talking about global politics. And if they are, it's probably at such a superficial level. They're like, Russia bad, as it's always been since the 80s, Ukraine good. Or they're talking about Game of Thrones or some show on Netflix. People are busy. People, it's too complicated to understand. And basically what you need is the oversimplified version to confirm what you already believe, and to use the analogy of the guy who I was listening to, like a dog, it's from the Bible, I think, having an itchy ear scratched. I mean, that feels better than either not scratching the itchy ear or scratching a party about it that's not itchy. It's like, just tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what reaffirms what I already believe. I don't have the time. I have a busy life. I've got a wife, kids, school, work. I don't have time for this.
Tell me what
I just want to live peacefully. Just tell me what I need to know so that I can go on with my day reaffirming what I already believe. And it's like, I don't know if I won't say it's a dumbing down of society, because I don't think it's ever been any different. Not everybody has the luxury of doing what you and I do, which is what we do is to understand these things and to put them out there for anybody who wants to take the time to listen. But even with our podcast, I send it to people I know, like, I don't have 3 hours. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, I don't have 3 hours for this, but I've watched every episode of Breaking Bad. So, and I don't judge them for that. It's just it is of no benefit to their existence
to know this stuff,
to invest the time that's required to actually know it. It's just for them, New York Times headline, and I'm good for the day.
Did you get a chance to take a look at the Pfizer documents a few weeks ago?
No, I know what they are, because
there's like 9 pages of side effects that they hid.
I know what they are because Robert Barnes is representing one of the whistleblowers. I mean, we've discussed these things. I forget her name now. Too many names, but he's representing one of the whistleblowers. I mean, these things were known to those who knew, and even now,
they lied to us.
Nobody cares. 9 pages of side effects, and we just discussed it yesterday. These are not potential side effects. These are documented, because the rationale is they don't want to list one more than they have to. So when they say potential side effects, these are actual adverse reactions that occurred in trials.
They did occur in trials.
Yeah.
That's why they have them in there. I haven't had any side effects. However, I don't like the idea that I did it under the false notion that those were conspiracy theories and it can never happen. That's what bugs me.
Well,
why did you lie to me, and then you made it so that I can't sue?
I mean, first of all, flags should have gone up when they made it so that you couldn't sue in the first place.
Well, that was my thing. I asked that too when I was at the vaccination center. I go, this is a weird thing to put here. Like, you're saying, we don't think anything's going to happen, but you can't sue us. I was like,
so
this is pretty
safe,
scary.
and it's so effective that we need to give immunity to the manufacturers. I mean, but the
government.
And the flip side is, well, they won't make it otherwise. Well, first of all, they make plenty of other pharmaceuticals that they don't have immunity for. And I'll say, I knew of these things when I made the decision to get the vaccine. I'm so far beyond it now that I'm past the point of what I'd call the reasonable concerns. I didn't like the fact that I felt pressure to do it. I mean, ultimately I did it, but I've explained it a few times. I did it for the reasons of pressure. When I was running for office, and I'm like, if I'm running for office and I go out and play with kids in the park, which I did because my kid was in the daycare, and someone blames an outbreak at a daycare on me, it's like, crap, I'm going to be taking my chances one way or the other. And I'm a healthy person. I think I'm healthy. I said, I'll take my chances by doing this so that I can avoid a whole slew of other risks, exposures, and potential accusations. And maybe it's a bad reason. It's my decision, and I don't care. But I'll tell you, I was happy when I made it past 2 weeks because I'm a neurotic person in general. It's like, okay, well, I have some, I have gas. It feels like a heart attack. Am I dying right now? So I'm familiar with my own neuroses, but we knew at the time, for anyone who was paying attention, what was known and what was being disclosed, I won't say surreptitiously, but without too much emphasis, and what was not being disclosed.
How I can confirm that there is fuckery and the news is useless is that when these papers dropped, we didn't hear anything about it.
Not a word.
This would have been like, oh, breaking news. This is what they hid from us. It would have been crazy good journalism. Like, look at what we weren't told.
Well,
nobody talked about it. I was like, you've all lost credibility. You're not journalists.
Well, it would be
You're paid actors. You just repeat what they tell you. You don't think.
No, but it would be one step more insidious than that. They would say, "Oh, we said this all along." I mean, look, there was an article in The Guardian that said it would affect your menstrual cycle from March 2020.
Actually, they gaslit women. They were telling them it wasn't true for a good portion of time.
Yep.
And I was told by two fans after a show the first time. No, I think that was the second time I was told. Two fans when I did a show in Quebec who told me that they went through that, and I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, and they even said we can't talk about it online because it's, people are like, oh, it's not true or whatever. And then I started seeing more people online talk about it. Then I had friends of mine who said the same thing. Go, yeah, I had a problem with my menstrual cycle, and I don't know if I could talk about it because people keep saying online that you're a conspiracy and it's lies. I was like, whoa, no. I know people online are saying it. People came up to me, like fans. So it's not just like a random person that wrote online. And then women couldn't talk about it. They were being called conspiracy theorists, liars, assholes.
Misogynists. They're anti-vaxxer. When Justin Trudeau, you just imagine the disgustingness of this, comes out and calls anti-vaxxers extremists, racists, misogynists, xenophobes.
That's how that works.
When the people who were raising the concerns about it were women, minorities who are, for their own historical reasons as relates to government abuse and government testing, he's calling the people who are women, minorities, racists, and xenophobes. And then lo and behold, they come on later and say, yeah, it might affect your, you know what? Everyone knew that it might affect your menstrual cycle because there's literally no foreign body intruding into your no foreign substance intruding into your body that doesn't carry certain risks of certain things, regardless of what the vaccine is.
Yeah.
All vaccines have certain fundamental risks. And miraculously this time, it didn't, and you couldn't discuss it. And also miraculously this time, in order to eliminate the control group, they made everyone take the vaccine, even those who had natural immunity, even those who had, bad reactions to prior stuff. Eliminate the control group. It's another amazing thing from the real Anthony Fauci.
Are you telling me, sir, that I'm going to die because of this?
Well, no, there are some people who have some more, I won't say they have some more interesting theories about, microchips and a bunch of other things.
I don't think that's going to happen.
I'm not kidding.
That'll be such a waste of money.
Well, but I understand why people believe this or even think it's true, because then you do have Bill Gates talking about not an IUD, birth control that you can program on and off. That's
I heard about that. Yeah,
and then you have people, in Sweden, 6,000 people injecting rice-sized chips under their skin for to facilitate vaccine passports. So I understand why people believe this, and I don't judge them for believing it. I'm entitled to my own beliefs as well, but I'm not so much worried about that. Yeah, but
like a chip, you have to put it somewhere specific. It's not just in your bloodstream and get it out. I don't think that's how that works. Plus, it's useless.
Well, and now everybody there's the theory about turning your body into an antenna for 5G. I was like, dude,
that's not true either.
You don't need to turn your body into an antenna. This is your antenna right here.
Yeah,
and everyone's got one already.
Radiated.
It's a lot simpler.
But that's what happens is you panic so much and then you fall into these wormholes.
Yeah, it's basically, I would call it fake news trauma. Like where you've been lied to so many times, you are inclined to believe other things that you would otherwise never believe had you been told the truth from the beginning.
I remember when this first started, and there was people. We know one guy who came up to me and said, "You know what this is? This isn't a virus. This is those new 5G towers that they put." And I remember calmly looking at him, "Are you fucking retarded? Are you fucking retarded?"
But
how? And then, there's 5G has existed way before we got those antennas in other places. How the fuck come they didn't have this? And he would just stare at me.
Well, because this is why I think people start mixing up ideas. Like the idea of 5G Some people have morphed into mind control through antenna, where, Alex Jones talked about it, and he refers to it as mind control, where, maybe it's something more like disruption of brain functions, which is scientifically accurate. So explaining something hyperbolically that actually has scientific basis allows people to say mind control in an actual functional sense. But then also people confound 5G constant surveillance satellite imagery capability with more nefarious and sci-fi ideas about the vaccine. The idea that there's now, 5G antennas which allow for amazing satellite imagery, which can then be used to track individuals for social credit score systems like they're doing in China. That's
on the way here.
Well, if it's not here already. And that's where you have like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. putting out those ideas. But then because you have the more outlandish, but you have the more eccentric, they go one step further.
Yeah.
It allows mainstream media to say, oh, RFK is one of those conspiracy theorists who talks about 5G antennas and controlling minds. I don't know anything about
him. Is he one of those guys?
Not that anything that I've ever heard. He certainly has an agenda in his own mind that he believes that there's a correlation between certain pesticides, certain chemicals, certain drugs being implemented on a wide scale and a decline in public health, to put it, what's the word I'm looking for? Judiciously.
Wait, yeah, pesticides, but we know this, no? Didn't we know from Monsanto a few years ago where they were poisoning people?
Well, no, for sure that. But I think it's more like there was an era in the 80s where they started doing certain things at a mass scale, one of which was vaccinations. And then when you start noticing an aggregate decline in health of children, he's made some correlations which have allowed people to call him the original anti-vaxxer.
Well, I know aspartame contributes.
But the other thing is, everything, every Teflon, aspartame.
Yeah, everything we're taking is
cell towers. Living under high tension power, electromagnetic fields, there's studies
refined
that show.
sugars, all these sugars that we're eating.
Everything. Processed foods. So look, there's one, his underlying point, I think, is undeniable. There's been an aggregate decline in public health, at least in America. And it coincided with Fauci's 30-year reign at the helms of the NIH. So, but I'm convinced that there's a deliberate weaponizing and egging on of the more outlandish conspiracy claims so that they can then lump legitimate thought and legitimate theory into those more outlandish conspiracies in order to write people off, like they've done with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and basically anyone who expresses any dissent. If you say like, we don't need vaccines for this, maybe we do have an immune system, and then they say, oh, science denier, he's an anti-vaxxer, lump him together with, all the other more outlandish conspiracy theories, which are untenable to most people.
Why do we have such a push for let's make a new vaccine for everything, stuff that we can handle and there's less dangers of handling it ourselves than there is a vaccine? Why? I don't understand the goal. Is it just money?
It's interesting. So I'm listening to the book, living through it, money. And there's also like Lewis Carroll talked about the tyrant who oppresses you because they actually think that they're doing it for your own benefit. These doctors, they're hammers looking for nails. It's what they do. So look for a problem, and then you actually genuinely think you're solving it. You'll justify doing some pretty, maybe illogical. You'll justify doing whatever you're doing because, hey, look, another problem. Vaccine is the solution. I'm a doctor. That's what I do. There's that. But my goodness. Money, you went from having the military industrial complex of the, 80s to now you have the medical industrial complex, and it's money corrupts, and it's just more of the same. There's so much money in it. It's an industry, and the only way that industry continues to exist is by propping itself up and finding problems to solve or creating problems to solve.
And legally, there can't ever be, no matter what comes out with these papers now, even if stuff comes out that was never discussed before but they were hiding, there can never be a class action lawsuit. There could be no damages, nothing. I
don't know. It seems one of the principles of civil law is that you can't conceal through fraud or vice.
Yeah.
But good luck suing the government. How long is it going to take? Who's going to do it? What's going to happen? I don't know, is the short answer. In civil law, vitiated consent, concealment through fraud you cannot hide your wrongdoing by doing that.
Well, the
but-
reason why I don't think it's going to happen is because people are, number one, not being informed. A lot of people don't know about the Pfizer docs that already dropped. They have no idea. And other people are so trapped in this cloud of, I already made the decision, it has to be the right one, that Phil actually was fighting on Twitter because he had posted a link to the Pfizer docs. And then people were like, yeah, well, what's the source? And then Phil was like, Pfizer. Pfizer. And they were like, I don't know about this. And it's like, this is from there.
They're just doing it to cover their ass.
Yeah, and then Phil was just like, oh, dude, they're just dumb. People are just dumb.
It's when you say they've done it to themselves, so they have a vested interest in continuing the lie, saying, look, I don't know what to believe, so I'm going to justify what I've done. They've done it to their kids. And do you think that they're going to admit that they might have done some very long-lasting damage to their children?
Yeah.
They thought it was right at the time. And if they say, holy crap.
Hey, I thought it was right. When I did it, I was 100%, I thought it was right at the time. And I influenced a lot of other people around me to go get it. And then now, when I saw that, I was like, oof, fuck,
Well,
I took a big risk. I could have dropped someone. The amount of people that I because of me, they went and got the shot.
I didn't tell it.
Statistically, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, I could have killed someone.
Well, and the numbers, we now know. This is confirmed by Health Canada's numbers, confirmed in CTV, erratum to their story, where they said, the risks of serious side effects, 1 in a million. Sorry, we made a mistake. It's actually 1 in 10,000.
Yeah, it's actually, I think the risks were higher if you get jabbed of getting something than going through COVID. I think COVID deaths were 0 point something.
0.000.
The risk of one of the serious side effects was 3 point something %. So you have more. We got fucked.
No, but I didn't tell anybody to get the vaccine or to not get the vaccine. I knew that when I did it, I knew what I knew at the time. It's effectively what I knew now. It's like I said, I'm flipping a coin one way or the other. It's for my demographic anyhow. I'm not a developing kid and I'm not a 90-year-old woman. So I'll flip the coin, and at the very least, no one's going to be able to, and there's going to be no judge who's going to say, Viva Frei, online YouTuber, critical of the system, didn't get the vaccine, infected his mother. Let's press charges against him, because you had that judge in BC saying, if you go to an illegal party and then spread COVID to someone who dies, as far as I'm concerned, you're guilty of manslaughter. Running for office and knowing how politics gets weaponized and ruins everything, I said, I'll flip a coin on this one. When I made it past the 1 month mark, one month mark, I'm like, okay, fine. Heart's holding out, and I didn't get GBS, so I'm happy.
What's GBS?
Guillain-Barré syndrome.
If I would have had that, I would have had that right now already, right?
It takes a couple weeks. Typically, the big window is 2 weeks. But again, this is not a side effect of COVID vaccine per se. This is a side effect of any vaccine. You introduce a foreign element into your body, it triggers
it might fuck
response.
Up, yeah.
But also reality, it's a potential side effects of any virus. I had a family member who got GBS, not from a vaccine, but from a virus. Your body goes haywire.
Like, what's going on?
Attacks its own nervous system. But I mean, I'd rather have something happen to me through no outside intervention than saying, oh, cripe, if I just hadn't done that, I wouldn't, it might not have happened.
For the elderly, did it help? Do we know? I don't even know.
It's
hard to tell now.
It's hard to.
They ruined the statistics by killing them all. They ruined the sample size.
You say it's a cynical, sick joke aside, but this is how viruses work: is the first wave, goes after the most vulnerable. So statistics will improve over time, even for the elderly demographic, because the most vulnerable had already died from it, like they did in the nursing homes in the first wave. Nursing homes which had no PPE because Justin Trudeau donated it to China, and then says, look how many deaths we have.
Yeah.
We got to capitalize off that and lock down the entire country.
Are we ever going to get payback for that? Are families going to be able to get compensated somehow for the murder of their elderly?
I will not call it murder for hyperbolic reasons, but negligence. You'll never get compensated. You'll never get that right. Will never be wrong. The last 2 years of stolen life, stolen humanity will never be regained. And then you have the governments talking about immunizing nursing homes as well for their conduct. It's immunize everybody. But my goodness, if a citizen were to have done one of those things, one of those concealments, one of those reckless acts of negligence, jail for life.
I'd be in jail.
Jail for life. Imagine. I'm sorry. You gave away all of the protective equipment, knowing that this pandemic was coming. What's wrong with you? Oh no, but sorry, you're the prime minister that did it. Oh, you were being nice to China. Okay, good. Now, thank you for representing the people that you took oath to represent.
So what's China doing now? They're a little quiet.
I have a friend in China. He's like, everything's been normal in China for a long time. Normal by standards in China.
Chinese standards.
But even still, this guy's saying to me, what the hell's going on in Canada? We don't even do this in China.
Is that what he said?
Verbatim. I won't get this kid in trouble because,
You tell him to stop talking shit about us, right? It's not our fault. We've been through a lot.
He's like, what is going on in Canada? Here, COVID has been relatively back to normal, but even here, like this is it's Canada's Tiananmen Square, what happened in Ottawa to some extent.
I'm glad nobody died. I'm glad nothing serious happened.
There was
so many people.
Oh no! Well, the woman who got trampled by the horse, an 80-year-old Indigenous woman. Yeah, she had a dislocated shoulder. There was a rumor of a guy in a brown jacket or a brown shirt who was also trampled by a horse that he passed away.
No, he didn't.
But I was there, and even when the Fox News reporter said reports of this woman died, I was like, dude, don't wait. But I told her, I said,
I saw her tweet. That's how I knew she didn't die. She's like, I'm not dead.
No, well, I saw that 2 days later. But I said, I retweeted. I said, if this is true, and I hope to God it's not, this is blood on Trudeau's hands.
Yeah, if that would happen, that would be crazy.
But either way, there's blood on his hands. I mean, he comes in there and abuses old people, brings in cavalry to a protest in the middle of winter on icy streets, physically assaults Canadian veterans who fought in Afghanistan. One guy who had his body blown apart in Afghanistan. I want to say Afghanistan or Iraq. It's Afghanistan. Was violently arrested, handcuffed for 2 hours outside in the freezing cold, and then hauled off 20 minutes outside of Ottawa and dumped on the side of the street like a piece of trash. And I interviewed this guy.
And this guy fought for us.
This guy fought for us. He was in a convoy of 4. 3 of his brothers and sisters died in the IED explosion. This guy had his body stitched back together. You could see the scars on him. Violently assaulted and arrested by the police for peacefully protesting for his rights. I mean,
it's those damn bouncy castles. They lead to rape. Everybody knows this.
And the jacuzzi. Can't have that.
But everyone was angry about that jacuzzi. I remember thinking, wow, I don't know if I'm just done and I'm jaded. But it seems like the news has lost its fucking mind. Because I remember seeing the jacuzzi like, look at this. This is crazy. There's a jacuzzi. This is unacceptable. I was like, oh.
Well, hold on. But unacceptable is one thing. National emergency is another. Can you imagine? At the same time, Trudeau is invoking the Emergencies Act. He's saying it's a national emergency.
Slave made my shoes. Right. Are you aware that slaves made most of the stuff that we're wearing right now?
Well, we know that these companies, they're okay with some forms of slavery, but not others.
The jacuzzi's bothering you. The slave labor made my stuff.
But it's not just that hypocrisy. It's the inconsistency of fact versus hyperbole. You have Justin Trudeau saying this is a national emergency. The same week, the Ottawa Council's biggest gripe, not that windows are getting smashed, people are getting assaulted, that there's bouncy castles and jacuzzis on Wellington. Yeah.
Disgusting.
It might be called disgusting, but it's not a national emergency. And yet you have one government official saying people have bouncy castles, and another one saying national emergency, bring in armored cars, tear gas, stun grenades, snipers, drones, literally all of this.
I know. I saw the snipers. I saw the drones. The funny thing was the horses, though. Why are we implicating these horses? They're innocent horses.
And they parade.
And this is not Game of Thrones.
Well,
why are we still using horses?
Why are we still using Poseidon? Did you see the text messages of the RCMP officers?
No.
There were disclosed, leaked text messages between RCMP. They were either text or DMs or Facebook messages, whatever.
Like, we need to use these horses?
Yes, because they said if one of them gets hurt, it'll be a great story. Something along those lines.
They sacrificed the lives of animals?
They were willing to. They were willing to say, my goodness, that's a great strategy. Let's bring the horses through, and if one gets hurt, all the better. Something along those lines.
They're doing the same thing like in the war. It's good if it's someone else. Now, because it's horses... It's okay because it's horse lives. They don't matter.
Well, it would make for good publicity. If a horse has to get euthanized, those vicious, violent xenophobes killed a horse. But you imagine parading through with 8 horses in a crowded parade, or I'll call it a crowded protest in the middle of winter. But I was there. I'm seeing it might have been umbrellas, so I couldn't, with my own eyes, detect if it was a gun or an umbrella. But there were men on roofs.
Oh no, there were snipers because they said just in case.
Oh yeah, just in case.
But look,
just in case.
I'll get since they didn't shoot anyone, I'll be like, you know what? You want to spend money on protecting yourselves with snipers? I don't care, as long as no one's getting hurt. I don't mind that.
No, but then they come in with armored police. They came with tear gas. They shot the Rebel news reporter Alexa Lavoie in the leg, point blank, with a tear gun canister. She had her credentials. She had a microphone.
She was asking for it. She's like, bitch.
But we all know what Justin Trudeau thinks of Rebel media. Like, jokes aside, he hates them.
Jokes aside, he actually hates her.
He actually hates her.
Yeah,
and then what would happen? The RCMP shoots her in the leg, point blank, at a protest. I'm sure it's a coincidence.
Now, whether it's a coincidence or not, for any journalist, that even the journalists there was protesters that were shoving a couple of them while they were doing the newscast, guys. I understand that whether you like Fox or CNN or whatever, they're all dumb. I understand you get angry, but the journalist, there's no reason to attack them. Like, it's so stupid that you could fire every journalist. The narrative will not change. So a guy who's there with his microphone, this was TVL or whatever from here, and they were getting shoved by protesters. They're like, "Fuck you, get out of here!" It's like, don't shove them.
I was there when CNN was doing a street interview, and there was this guy standing behind them saying, "Tell the truth, CNN." I was like,
"That's fine. I don't care about that, but don't get physical."
Well, so then it gets obstructive. Then he starts following them around.
I don't like that shit.
No, and I told him, it's like, dude, don't do this because you know what they're gonna. If they are as dishonest as they are, and they are. They're going to take you and use the example to demonize everybody here to say we were harassed and stalked by angry protesters.
Yeah, they do demonize.
And they did it.
But even if they wouldn't demonize, if you want to move forward with a good discourse, you have to have some type of civility. You be able to talk and negotiate to move forward. If you're not willing to, then you can't talk about the other side being hard-headed because you're being hard-headed too.
No, I agree. I say let him talk because that's the only way you're going to let him lie. So don't interrupt them.
Especially not physically. That bothered me.
No, I have no tolerance for violence.
Zero,
period. Ever. And which is when I got so disgusted when I see these cops. They come in to break up the protest after Trudeau declared the Emergencies Act, but before he rescinded it. And they come in and you see the way they operate. They just march forward. They just wait for someone to fall, slip, push back so they can go nuts. And they just did that over and over again. Push back. I was there. And they deployed a freaking stun grenade or a concussive grenade. I'm sitting there like 5 feet from the cops. I'm just recording it, streaming it, and then I see something go up in the air and boom, boom, and like I was like, what the hell are they trying to do? Like with that, are they trying to give someone a heart attack, or are they trying to startle the crowd into some reaction that they can then say, come down with the full force of our armored trucks behind us? I don't want to say it's not Canada anymore, but it's Justin Trudeau's Canada, and we can't take it back from Justin Trudeau fast enough.
I didn't know they launched a stun grenade.
Oh, the 2 stun grenades where I was. Then they were pepper spraying, but these cops, they look like Starship Trooper villains with their batons in their hands, and they're standing there just staring down protesters. And you had one cop in the back taking pictures of everybody because he's going to go after everyone who's at the protest afterwards. They will fight these peaceful protesters to our last tax dollar. They're going to go after everyone. Yeah.
I don't condone this behavior. I don't want to pay for this.
Me neither. And that's why just get this guy out of power.
Let's get better books in school. Let's get teachers paid more. Let's get some more doctors in the hospital. That's where I want my money to go. I don't want to throw stun grenades and kill horses.
Well, I hope those teachers who supported breaking up this protest don't protest too hard the next time they want to raise, because the precedent's been set, and you may not have the right to protest.
How funny would that be? Like, teachers need more money. Throw a couple of stun grenades in there, get them out of here.
No, illegalize their protest. If it blocks a street, hold them accountable for the damages that it caused. Workers, CSN. You guys want to protest and block a bridge? Good luck. The precedent has been set.
Oh my God! Could you imagine the balls in the government? They start launching stun grenades and horses.
Well, they would. They may or may not.
Depends on how hard they protest.
Depends on whether or not they're politically useful or politically threatening.
Look, Vives, thank you for coming again.
Vives, I like that.
Soon we'll see. Soon we're going to start a new podcast of just us talking about the news. That'll be fun too.
It is on the to-do list.
It's getting there,
and I have a to-do list that just keeps getting longer and longer. But 100%.
If anybody didn't know you, which I don't know that that's possible, but if anybody didn't know what you're up to, links are all in the description. Follow Viva. He's got a great YouTube channel. He's always doing his vlogs. He's updating people on the happenings around the world daily. I think your vlog is daily. I see your stuff every day.
I think I'm actually going to move into basically live streaming as much as possible, clipping certain highlights, putting it on the second channel, Viva Clips, and then I'll do the breakdowns anyhow. But right now, the world is changing so rapidly that if it takes me 5 hours to edit and produce a video, the reality might be different by the time it gets out. So yeah.
Follow Viva. He's on Twitter, he's on Facebook. And remember, people, don't fight for Russia, for Ukraine. Fight for peace, because they're just going to keep this shit going as long as they can. Don't hate your neighbor. That's the best advice I could give you.
Thank you. Thank you.
We've built this prison cell 'cause we can't trust ourselves.